Thank you, Abhinav Pandyaji, CEO, Usanas Foundation, Ambassador Trigunath, my old friend and colleague, Dr. Jain, the director, and distinguished participants. It gives me great pleasure to speak to you on a topic that is so close to my heart, as much as it has evolved in my consciousness and practice over 46 years as an IFS officer representing the civilizational state of India abroad and as an Indian serving in the United Nations. That too, in a dialogue to commemorate the great Maharana Pratap's conception of upholding territorial integrity and unity and building the strength, Shakti of Bharat, that is India, and promoting her greatness and glory. The time has come for us as a nation, and especially as a strategic policy community, to seize upon what is universally recognized as a special moment for India and the world, to create, feed, and sedulously build a narrative on and delve into the substance of the why, when, what, and how of India's march to be a leading great power in the coming decade and beyond. Scoping the challenges and opportunities of reaching the greatness destination from the current monikers that are being used of India being a rising, emerging, major, bridging, balancing power, using established parameters, both intrinsic and relative to other countries. Now, why do I say this? Because India, in my view, and I think it is shared widely, matters more to the world, and the world matters more to India at this moment, at this turnpike moment in history and the emerging world order than any other time since its independence. The most populous, 1.4 billion, and youth-rich country, 60% and more, is primed for reaping a huge demographic and talent dividend. Fastest growing and dynamic economy, fifth largest now, is on its way to becoming the third soon. It is playing and poised to play an ever-expanding and even indispensable role in regional and global security and in global governance institutions. We are seeing one of the greatest tectonic shifts in the emerging world order, the global, what is being referred to as the global Zeitenwende movement. End of an era and beginning of another. Major inflection points, as we all know, include the World War III type health crisis, pandemic, social and economic meltdown, and technological acceleration caused by the calamitous COVID pandemic had a decisive influence on geopolitics and geoeconomics. It unleashed a sharpening US-China great power, strategic competition, and systemic rivalry. A Cold War 2.0 mentality referred to by Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, adding to the growing US-China one. It put India as another rising and a major rising power in Asia and a democracy in a pole position. It signaled the moving away from a unipolar world order into a bipolar one, definitely, but even perhaps an inexorable shift to a genuinely multipolar, multi-civilizational one, creating opportunities, but also posing some clear dangers. And India can be and has to be a mover and shaker in that evolution to multipolarity. And it has to then, of course, meet its greatness destiny. Now, China, which had been quietly rising in earlier decades, seemed to assume hegemonic Middle Kingdom postures as its aggressive expansionist actions in the South China Seas, Sino-Indian border, Hong Kong, and Taiwan indicated. The COVID-19 crisis also exposed the overdependence of the world on the Chinese economic behemoth and its vulnerability to China-led what is referred to as hyper-globalization. This induced Western and other countries' rethink on putting all FDI, trade, and technology eggs in the Chinese basket. India could benefit from this deglobalization and shift to what is being referred to as friendshoring and secure and resilient global value chain creation. On the other hand, United States and China, one established great power, one just arrived one, emerged from the COVID-19 pandemic having taken significant damage to their prestige and soft power. Neither country distinguished itself or aided the international community significantly in responding. India, on the other hand, proved its mettle with its vaccine success story and effective management of COVID, given its population scale, size, scope, and resources. And went beyond that and helped 96 countries at least. China, as the ground zero country of the pandemic, was less than transparent and cooperative international community and institutions on the origin of the virus, determination, extent of its own morbidity and mortality rates, and the efficacy of its vaccine and handling of the whole response up until now. The Russia-Ukraine war shook the world order in multiple ways. It was justified as a war of necessity by Russia. It's the first war directly being fought by one of the World War II victors in the heart of Europe since 1945. But the way the US, EU, and NATO have responded to it, it seems like their war of choice, intended as a reprise of Francis Fukuyama's end of history project. All-out support of Ukraine, short of directly entering the war, is projected as the defense of the free world and securing of liberal hegemony. 1 year on, and it would be interesting to see where Russia, a major power, ends up in the major power calculus, reclaiming its empire or losing all that it had recouped since the end of 1989, retaining its umbilical cord with West Europe, or becoming more a Eurasian ally and aid to China's great power game. India has managed to maintain its long-standing relationship with Russia and could play a peacemaking role. The war has also shaken the European Union further, since they will have to pick up the pieces of Ukraine's absorption and reconstruction and its attempts to decouple from energy and other raw material dependence on Russia, even as it seeks to enhance its NATO, EU, Germany, France defense capabilities while keeping some room for maneuver vis-a-vis the USA. Other major powers in the Indo-Pacific, like Japan and Australia, are reassessing their security postures and strengthening their capabilities and see virtues in a strategic partnership with India, including as part of the Quad with the US. The global institutions and rules of global governance, they embody the UN, the MFIs, the WTO, etc., were meanwhile tested like never before and found to be inadequate. Whether it is in dealing with the COVID crisis, preventing the Russia-Ukraine war, or brokering peace, or mobilizing the world to cope with the 3F crisis, that is food, fuel, and fertilizer, or monitoring any possible nuclear biosecurity fallout, accident, etc., these institutions lack mandate, scale, ambition, and teeth, but also need reform to make them representative of and relevant to the new great power realities. With greater technical expertise and independence of action, free from great power pressures, something India has been demanding. Institutions are also being pulled in different directions or paralyzed with a division along the Cold War 2.0, P2 versus P3 lines across the spectrum of organizations. Specifically for India, with its extent and potential assets to play a consequential regional and global role, it is creating a whole new vista of opportunity. Future gazers are seeing this as India's decade and India's century, the 21st century. A Morgan Stanley report claims that the 4 global trends of deglobalization away from China, demographics of a burgeoning young India in an aging world, digitization, and tech 4.0 as an economic and political game changer, and the decarbonization, green development imperative hugely favor India. And India is readily grasping those opportunities. India is also seen to be in the sweetest geopolitical spot since 1947 to be a third independent pole, according to many strategists. However, it would be expected to paradoxically play that role not through the traditional non-aligned way, but by being multi-aligned through crucial multiple strategic political alliances and economic partnerships, minilateral, plurilateral groupings, sub-regional, regional, interregional, some of which you referred to and which I was associated with, but which have now grown to be much more substantive and with greater strategic heft. PM Modi has been sensing this and trying to influence it and working to leverage it. He knows that being a great power is a function of capabilities, interests, and recognition. His leadership is therefore aimed at giving India a will to power, whilst building the sinews of a critical mass of economic, military, nuclear, space, R&D, technological, and intellectual power. He has enhanced and projected the attributes of its immense capital of soft power, the civilizational Vishwaguru role, culture, yoga, Ayurveda, Bollywood, TV, creative industry, media, and digital capabilities. In a paradigmic shift in our strategic culture, he has developed and used what is called match politics, hard, competitive, and coercive power, along with soft power. India's stature as the world's largest, oldest, diverse, pluralistic democracy has a unique value for the world. While India can be seen by the US and the West as an indispensable pillar in its international liberal democratic order architecture, it does and can continue to be a bridge builder in the once again polarized world, with its multi-alignment, including with and for the global South. Witness its G20 presidency, and I hope in your conversations you're going to be focusing on India's G20 presidency as a very important strategic point in the evolution of India's greatness journey. PM Modi has sought a defining role in global affairs for India, with the Indo-Pacific as a major theater of impact and security construct, where the contestation between the two great powers, US and China, is playing out. And this is going beyond the Indian Ocean into the Indo-Pacific, the concept that itself, puts India on a global strategic space, which is giving it a regional, interregional power and stature. He has tried to enhance India's systemic and normative weight, and they manifest themselves in India's vision, policy making, and proactive role on and for advancing global public goods, from SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, to climate change action, to blue economy and ocean governance, from peace, security, counterterrorism, to humanitarian and disaster response and pandemic-related vaccine Maitri and pharmacy of the world role. PM Modi's India has pushed for purposive multilateralism while opting for minilateral and plurilateral mechanisms including G20, as well as new ways of mobilizing and leading the changing global South. Through strategic realignments and transformative bilateral and global partnerships, he has positioned India appropriately onto the trajectory of greatness. He is the first Prime Minister to articulate India's great power destiny in a comprehensive, affirmative way, in hard and soft power terms, and as a definite objective. We have been shy before this. India at 75, Amrit Kal up to 2047, when India becomes a developed country and second largest economy in the world. The distance to be covered, of course, is considerable, and the obstacles are many. But there is an emerging consensus that it is a mission possible. And, of course, provided certain reforms are executed, goals are met, and there continues to be a bold and visionary leadership like that of Prime Minister Modi's, which exhibits a will to realize India's great power destiny. And also, we are not going to be getting there just by taking baby steps. We have to take giant strides towards the goals that will take us to our destination. As some strategists have said, realizing Prime Minister Modi's goal of India's great power will require protecting achievements, and I want to emphasize this, protecting achievements thus far: liberal democracy, territorial integrity, civic nationalism, and sustained, relentless transformation. It is about grasping the big strategic picture along with the astuteness to fix the nuts and bolts right. It's also about boosting India's trend economic growth rates, agriculture, manufacturing, services, and technological competitiveness, thus enabling India to acquire essential material power for greatness. Quickening the pace and depth of structural, economic, and financial system reforms, infrastructure expansion and upgradation, drastically renovating their scleroptic elements, leading on skills, enterprise innovation, and productive capacity, R&D. India's technology revolution will have to be accelerated as a means of leapfrogging and maybe even pole vaulting into greatness. And Prime Minister Modi realizes that. As he has said, when India grows, the world grows. When India reforms, the world transforms. Much needed economic, social, military, and technological reform in every way is his mantra and mission. How can India, a large, complex, diverse, federal, and eternally self-contesting, litigious democracy, with domestic veto wielders and special interests, myopic opposition and regional leaders blocking vital economic and social reforms, and as Maharana Pratap ji would have said, enemies within, succeed in this transformation? That's a very important question, and we must find answers. India has fought hard to not be a passive system taker on the global stage. At the least, it has been a conscientious objective, and I've been very much, as a multilateral diplomat, been part of that. I can testify to our batting above our league to even be a system shaper in international fora like the UN, IMF, World Bank, and WTO, and benefiting from them. Now, a bigger litmus test lies ahead. India must move from exercising its power of argument to wielding the argument of power, real power, in the realm of global governance and championship of the global South. The onus is on India to take on global responsibilities, exactly what Prime Minister Modi has done, with India now acting as a system maker that has an expanded global footprint, a role model, leading by example on climate change, and driver on vital issues for humanity. India, however, is still constrained by not being able to speak for and integrate South Asia, not being at the decision-making table in the UN Security Council as a permanent member, or not having controlling stakes in the global institutions as major budgetary contributors, nor is the rupee included as world's reserve currency. We have not yet become a dominant trading technology and financial power, nor are we able to bear the short-term costs for long-term global influence and power. How can we change that is part of our continuing quest for India's greatness examination. On India's extent and future military capabilities to defend its 6,000 kilometers long land border, 7,500 kilometers long sea border, fight a two-front war with Pakistan and China, and effectively undertake counterterrorism, anti-insurgent, and internal security operations. Importantly, can it transform to sustain PM Modi's change of posture from reactive deterrence to proactive deterrence, be the sword arm of statecraft, have multi-domain capability, defend India's overseas interests, and enable it to be a strong net regional and global security provider and weighty military power? Our military experts answer in the affirmative, provided necessary political will, administrative agility, and financial investment are deployed to reform and transform, restructure, re-strategize, and better coordinate. I think that is key. All aspects of security, including nuclear, maritime, biosecurity, and cybersecurity, among others. The centrality of jointness of the three services and military jointness issues need to be addressed, and military strategic and defense industrial effectiveness, successful indigenization of defense production and weapon systems, and acquisition of the state-of-the-art equipment for a future-ready force are important factors as well. Now, during PM Modi's tenure on foreign policy, major challenges have been faced, but also unparalleled advances have taken place. Some major departures, including in the novel and decisive approach adopted by him for great power relations, retaking the initiatives that make India a natural part of the management of the regional and global order. Bringing new self-assurance, Prime Minister Modi is recognized as having asserted India's new position in the international system as a power in its own right. Jettisoning historic hesitations, he has forged a strong, comprehensive Indo-US strategic partnership. This has been a major departure. And again, asset building as a critical lever to secure core national objectives and enhance space for maneuvering among major powers. He has expanded engagement with Japan. I couldn't have dreamt, that was my first posting. I couldn't have dreamt where we have taken our relationship with Japan. Russia and Europe reconnected with the Anglosphere, stood up to pressures from China, and pushed back on cross-border terrorism from Pakistan as never before. He has ended the defensiveness with Israel while simultaneously expanding ties with Gulf and Arab states. And I know that Ambassador Trigunath has been writing a lot on that area. And the blue chakra of the Indian flag, which he associates with our Indian Ocean, the Sagar vision, and the Indian Ocean Rim Association initiative and partnership. And he has embraced the Indo-Pacific geopolitical, geostrategic construct and geo-economic construct. However, challenge remains for India to reclaim the subcontinent. That's a major foreign policy, but also, our strength, greatness-related challenge to reclaim the subcontinent. It's the Indian subcontinent, but we don't have all our neighbors in the subcontinent with us. And somehow staunch, as Raja Mohan has talked about, somehow staunch and heal the bleeding wound of Pakistan in its strategic body through strength and transformational partnerships with the West and the rest, to fight back the Chinese encirclement and woo back neighbors who are no longer buffers and protectorates through the allure of shared geography and culture, markets, and FDI. India will need coalition building with well-articulated and defined objectives to enhance its interest in the great power constellation. Going forward, importantly, I would urge our intellectual, political, official, and business classes to buy into the greatness of India project, contribute in their own realms and not put self-serving obstacles in its path, and for the strategic community to build constituencies in key partner countries where it matters to change the whole mindset and perceptions about India. We need because narrative building has become, in this day and age of social media and instant communication, it has become a very important part of how a country is recognized as a major power or a leading power or a great power. We need a popular movement for seeding the ideas and raising consciousness about sprouting and growing the plant of India's greatness destiny. Now, many feel that we have to grow a will to national power. We lack that in many instances, that, that civic nationalism has to be really built up and fostered. India's love of mankind, its Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam ethos, someone said, like Rahul Sagar, said that it tends to drown out the patriotism or Rashtra Dharma. Reverse it, he says, and India will be a leading position in Dharma. We need a civilizational catharsis to develop an appetite for India becoming a leading global power and to be hungry in grasping it. Otherwise, I and many others like me, I'm sure, in India and in the world, are concerned that the world will become one family, but some other country will be leading it. And we will be relegated to subservience once again. And this, in the name of Maharana Pratap, we cannot allow. Thank you.